The woods held a strange allure. It was as if the trees themselves whispered secrets, drawing in those who dared to venture close. The forest seemed alive, its very essence pulsating with an ancient, mysterious energy. A silent invitation whispered on the wind, beckoning the curious and the brave. The rustling leaves seemed to murmur tales of old, stories of those who had walked these paths before. 4 friends, eager for adventure, stepped onto the worn path. They were filled with excitement and anticipation, ready to uncover the secrets hidden within the depths of the forest. They were oblivious to the ominous path that lay ahead. The forest, with its towering trees and thick underbrush, seemed to close in around them, creating an almost claustrophobic atmosphere.
The woods seemed to sigh as they entered, their laughter swallowed by the dense foliage. The further they ventured, the more the forest seemed to come alive, its presence almost palpable.
The trail was clear at first, dappled sunlight painting the forest floor. The light danced through the leaves, creating a mosaic of shadows and light that was both beautiful and eerie. As the sun began its descent, the woods grew darker. The once warm and inviting forest now took on a more sinister tone, the shadows lengthening and deepening. The path, once so clear, started to fade. The friends found themselves struggling to discern the way forward, the forest seeming to shift and change around them. Unease settled over the group. The cheerful banter that had marked the beginning of their journey was replaced by a tense silence, each step forward taken with increasing caution.
They pressed on, their earlier excitement waning. The thrill of adventure was now overshadowed by a growing sense of dread, the forest's oppressive atmosphere weighing heavily on their spirits.
The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. Every breath seemed to draw in the essence of the forest, a mix of life and decay that was both intoxicating and suffocating. Twilight painted the woods in shades of grey, blurring the line between reality and shadow. The forest seemed to shift and change with the fading light, its true nature hidden in the growing darkness. The forest had become a labyrinth, silent and watchful. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig seemed to echo with unseen eyes, watching their every move. The friends could feel the weight of the forest's gaze, a silent observer to their journey. Anxiety etched itself onto their faces as they exchanged worried glances. The realization that they were no longer in control of their path began to sink in, the forest dictating their every move. The canopy above grew denser, blocking out the sky and casting the forest floor into deeper shadow. The once familiar sounds of the forest now seemed foreign and menacing, each noise a potential threat. Huddling together for comfort, the friends moved cautiously, their senses heightened by the oppressive atmosphere. Every step was taken with care, the forest's silence amplifying their every movement. The path ahead seemed to disappear into darkness, the way forward obscured by the encroaching night. The friends felt a growing sense of isolation, the forest closing in around them, cutting them off from the outside world. Despite the fear and uncertainty, a resolve began to form within the group. They would not be deterred by the forest's eerie presence. Together, they would find their way through, no matter what lay ahead. With renewed determination, the friends pressed on, their steps more confident. The forest, though still foreboding, seemed to acknowledge their resolve, the path ahead becoming just a little clearer. As they moved forward, the forest began to open up slightly, a hint of light breaking through the dense foliage. It was a small sign, but it was enough to bolster their spirits and keep them moving forward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the friends emerged from the dense forest. Relief washed over them as they stepped into the open, the oppressive weight of the forest lifting from their shoulders. Smiles and laughter returned as they realized they had made it through. The forest, with all its eerie allure and hidden dangers, had not defeated them. They had faced the unknown and come out the other side, stronger and more united than before. As they looked back at the forest, they couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for its ancient, mysterious presence. The woods had tested them, but it had also revealed their strength and resilience. With a final glance, they turned and walked away. The eerie woods, now a memory of an adventure that had brought them closer together. The forest's call had been answered, and they had emerged victorious. They chose a small clearing for their camp, a spot that seemed safe and inviting in the fading light of day. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced around them. A sense of foreboding hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. As darkness fell, the temperature plummeted. The warmth of the day was quickly replaced by a biting chill that gnawed at their skin. A bone-chilling cold seeped into their bones, making them shiver uncontrollably. The night seemed to grow colder with each passing minute, the air heavy with an unspoken dread. They huddled closer around the crackling fire, seeking solace in its warmth. The flames danced and flickered, casting eerie shadows on their faces. The fire was their only comfort in the encroaching darkness.
A thick fog rolled in, blanketing the forest in an eerie silence. The mist was so dense that it seemed to swallow the light from their fire, leaving them in a world of shadows. Their laughter was gone, replaced by hushed whispers. The jovial mood of the evening had vanished, replaced by a growing sense of unease.
Each rustle of leaves, every snapping twig sent shivers down their spines. The forest was alive with sounds, each one more unsettling than the last. Fear, primal and consuming, began to take root. Their eyes darted around, searching the darkness for unseen threats. The feeling of being watched was almost palpable.
"It's just fog," he said, his voice tight with unease. He tried to sound reassuring, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his own fear. But even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The shadows seemed to move, to shift and change, as if hiding some unseen presence.
The forest held its breath, its silence a heavy weight upon their chests. The oppressive stillness was broken only by the occasional snap of a twig or the rustle of leaves, each sound amplifying their fear. They knew they were not alone, but what lurked in the darkness remained a mystery, a shadowy figure that haunted their every thought. Morning did little to lift the oppressive atmosphere. The fog clung stubbornly to the forest floor. The once familiar trail had vanished, they were hopelessly lost. Panic began to set in. Their compasses spun uselessly, their needles dancing erratically. GPS devices, their lifelines to the outside world, displayed only static. The forest was playing tricks on them, toying with their sanity. They were trapped in a green and silent hell.
"We need to find our way back," she said, her voice trembling.
But her words held little conviction. The forest had a hold of them now, its presence suffocating, relentless. There was no escape. Days blurred into nights. The forest held them captive, its grip tightening with each passing hour. The fog remained a constant, unsettling companion.
Strange occurrences plagued us, chipping away at our resolve. We heard whispers carried on the wind, our names spoken in hushed tones. Distorted faces appeared in the fog, vanishing as quickly as they materialized.
Their minds, exhausted and on edge, played cruel tricks on them.
"Did you hear that? Someone called my name."
But when they turned to look, there was nothing there. Only the swirling fog and the oppressive silence of the forest. Fear turned to paranoia. The once serene forest had become a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent shivers down their spines. The fog, thick and unyielding, cloaked the trees in a ghostly veil, making it impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. It was as if the forest itself was alive, breathing, and watching their every move. They began to suspect each other, their sanity slowly unraveling. The bonds of friendship that had once been their strength were now fraying at the edges. Accusations flew like arrows, each one more piercing than the last. "Why were you whispering to yourself?" one would demand. "I wasn't, you're the one acting strange," another would retort. The forest seemed to amplify their fears, turning minor misunderstandings into full-blown confrontations. The forest was driving them mad, turning friend against friend. The once familiar faces of their companions now seemed alien and untrustworthy. Every glance, every gesture was scrutinized and questioned. The fog played tricks on their minds, making them see things that weren't there, hear voices that didn't exist. It was a relentless assault on their senses, and they were losing the battle. Trust, once unbreakable, crumbled under the weight of their terror. The shared memories of laughter and camaraderie were overshadowed by the present horror. Each step deeper into the forest felt like a step away from reality. The fog seemed to whisper secrets, sowing seeds of doubt and fear. They were no longer a united group, but a collection of individuals, each fighting their own demons.
I swear I saw Emily talking to someone in the fog. Her silhouette was barely visible, but there was no mistaking the presence of another figure. It was tall, shadowy, and seemed to blend seamlessly with the fog. My heart raced as I watched, unable to move or call out. The figure leaned in close to Emily, and for a moment, it looked like they were sharing a secret. But when I confronted her, she swore she was alone. Her eyes were wide with fear, and her voice trembled as she insisted that there was no one else there. I wanted to believe her, but the image of that shadowy figure was burned into my mind. It felt like the forest was playing tricks on us, making us doubt our own senses.
I saw John scratching symbols into a tree, symbols that weren't there before. His movements were frantic, almost desperate, as if he was trying to communicate something important. The symbols were strange, unlike anything I had ever seen. They seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, pulsing with an eerie energy.
John stared intently at the tree, a look of fear and confusion on his face. He seemed entranced by the symbols, unable to look away. His hands trembled and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. It was as if the tree held some dark secret, one that only he could see. The others watched in silence, unsure of what to do. There were no symbols visible on the tree. To the rest of us, it was just an ordinary tree, its bark rough and unmarked. But John insisted that the symbols were there, that they were a warning. His eyes darted around, searching for something that only he could see. The forest seemed to mock us, hiding its secrets just out of reach.
"You're imagining things," Emily insisted, her voice shaking. She tried to sound confident, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her. We all wanted to believe that it was just our imagination, that the forest wasn't really alive. But the sense of dread was growing, wrapping around us like the fog itself. But even she couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread. It was a palpable force, pressing down on us from all sides. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every sound a warning. We huddled together, seeking comfort in each other's presence. But the fear was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. The forest was alive, watching them, listening to their every word. It felt like a living entity, with its own thoughts and intentions. The trees seemed to whisper to each other, their branches swaying in a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. The fog moved like a living creature, curling around us, obscuring our vision and distorting our senses. And it was playing a deadly game. The rules were unknown, the stakes unimaginably high. We were pawns in a game we didn't understand, and the forest was the master. Every step we took felt like a move on a chessboard, each decision a gamble. The fog's phantom play was relentless, and we were trapped in its eerie embrace with no way out.